call to order our first budget night on Wednesday, April 29th, 2026 at 5:36 p.m. Our first item is the agenda. Is there a motion on the agenda?
Adopt the agenda.
Moved by Council Barlow, seconded by Council Carpenter. Just a quick reminder that Board of Finance is the body that will be making any motion formality in a formality, but all of City Council is invited to sit in and participate in all of our budget nights. So we have a motion on the agenda. Is there any discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. When we get into our actual agenda items with our individual departments doing their presentations on the budget, we'll first go to Board of Finance members for questions, and then we'll open it up. I'll try to keep about the same amount of time for each presentation. 5 to 10 for each department, and then about 5 to 10 for Q&A. So I'll be the timekeeper. We'll first go to Board of Finance members for questions, and then fellow councilors, just in terms of the run of the show. But our next item is actually a public forum, which we have for each one of these budget evenings. It is a practice of the Board of Finance to first go to members of the public in the room, and then online for any public and members of the public here to address the body. So first I'll look to the room. Is there anyone here to address? Great, we'll spend about 2 minutes similar to City Council, so you can introduce yourself.
I figured.
And then we'll go on to anyone else who'd like to address. Welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hope I'm audible. Charlie in here. I'm Charlie Messing. I live in Pine College. Right in the if anybody wants to know how to break their arm, I can help. But it'll be okay. I can't wait till the grade streets really look great. Because Main Street baffles. And I'm sure whoever's bringing it together knows a whole lot more of that why makes sense. But I'd like to save Memorial Auditorium. Please, Club 242 in the basement. Please. I mean, if the building is wrecked, build a replica, don't build something. Right. Yes, I still think we need the number 11 bus now. Up College Street from the waterfront to the hospital. The hospital has got to take responsibility, putting the second half of the hospital 2 miles out of town until you drive. They have to get the bus back. From College Street to the hospital, out to the airport, where not every airport person has an extra $50 to spend on taxis. And I'm one. And Tilly Drive is almost impossible to get to if your appointment is perfectly aligned with the sparse bus schedule, which is incidentally possible to decipher. It's just not designed right. But yeah, I spent 5 hours going to a half-hour appointment. So I believe we need that 11 by
That Charlie, it sounds really nice. Finish that thought.
And back to you.
Okay.
Back to you, Wendy.
Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate it. Is anyone else here in the room who'd like to address the Board of Finance for public forum today? Seeing none, we'll go online, and anyone who's interested online, please raise your hand and we will acknowledge you. Seeing no Zoom hands. So with that, I will close public forum and we'll move on to our first budget presentation. Our airport gets to be the first ones up. So just a friendly reminder, I'm going to give you about 10 minutes for a presentation, and then we'll move into Q&A for the next 10 minutes or so. And you are the first one, so you're going to just role model for your colleagues, right? Great. Okay, welcome. And if you want to, if you have a bigger room, introduce yourself first, please, and then we'll go right into it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm Marie Friedman. I am the Director of Finance at the airport.
And my name is Nick Longo. I'm the Director of Aviation for the airport. We're going to be right on time with our 10-minute mark. with a pretty amazing upcoming year that we have again for the airport. So thank you all for your support last year. Of course, our presentation starts with our organizational chart, and we can answer any questions at the end about anything that you see on the chart itself. There's no changes to this from what you saw last fiscal year. We do currently have one vacant position, which is one of our leadership role positions, the Deputy Director of Aviation Administration. And as I mentioned in future slides, there may be some changes in fiscal year 2027, but nothing for you tonight compared to this on screen. One of the next things that I'd like to share is, of course, our passengers. Everything that we do as an airport is heavily tied to our passenger numbers, whether you're talking about airport concessions, rental cars, parking garage revenues. We'll dive into some of those, but our passengers are, of course, very important to every single one of those line items. There's a lot on the line graph right here, but what I'll highlight here is the end of calendar year 2026. On the chart itself reflects just over 750,000 outbound passengers, so over 1.5 million passengers. We have not seen those numbers since 2008. Now, that's a projected number. We can't go further than about February 2027 with the airline schedules right now. So that's why we're only reflecting a calendar year 2026. But it's looking extremely positive. Last year, we ended calendar years at just shy of 720. So this is a really great jump in step for us, looking at another record year. For our highlights for fiscal year 2027, one of our largest priorities is right back to those passenger numbers, to grow our route network, to grow our seating capacity, which may mean increasing flights or increasing the size of the aircraft on any particular route, again, to reflect those numbers from the prior slide. Quickly with that is always our carbon accreditation program and our reduction in carbon that we are actively working many different angles on, including what we build with new buildings, all the way to some of the fueling systems or electrical systems that we use at the airport for our vehicle networks. We have achieved our level 1 status. This was last year. This is through the Airport Councils International, which is the only carbon accreditation program, and we're working toward tier 2, which means there is a recorded reduction in carbon at the airport. We talk a lot about Project Next, which is the brand new terminal that we just opened, which we're very exciting. While the new terminal, the new building is operational, there's still multiple phases that come with that, including the second floor renovation, which is happening right now. That will carry very much into fiscal year 2027. So that's, of course, one of our big priorities. On top of that, we want to make sure we're still planning for the final step, what we're informally calling it, but the final South Terminal expansion project. There's some design work happening, conversations happening, very minor things happening. But this fiscal year 2027 will be very important to make sure that many future years down the road we're ready for that. This will not start in fiscal year 2027. This is just a planning conversation. Again, back to passengers, we're seeing very high numbers through the fall of 2026. 2025, October, was the highest month ever in the airport's history. We've never had over 160,000 passengers in a single month. We did in October 2025. We will in October of 2026. So we need to make sure we're prepared for that. And there's some expenses and opportunities that come with that. There's a list of capital improvements that we're working towards. Cargo apron projects, which is exactly what that means for aircraft cargo opportunities and operations. A new snow removal equipment building, which we're planning on constructing soon. You will see that actually most likely in the next couple of months in front of City Council, but we'll start the construction in fiscal year 2027. We have constant operations happening with our residential sound insulation program. Right here, you see a phase 6, which we are expecting funding to be received shortly, and then we can start working on our phase. We are several hundred houses into the project right now. We're working towards additional sound insulation for voluntary residents around the airport. We are also working towards a new de-icing location. This is an aircraft de-icing fluid that is required by the FAA. So we're working on additional capital and planning efforts for that. And then one of the big highlights for us, as you can imagine, whether we have very limited number of operations as we did during COVID, or record-breaking operations like we do this year and into next year, our expenses don't shift too much. So we received over $25 million in stimulus relief funding from the federal government. This is going to be the first fiscal year that those funds are not in our budget. So we're fully back to normal operations. We're fully back to retaining the revenue that we need to support the enterprise fund of the airport, which every dollar that we need for our expenses is made at that airport.
About 4 minutes. Just keep going.
Okay. I'm going to highlight some of the most important things that I want to pass on to all of you. Our expenditure budget, our operating budget itself is growing by 4% year over year. Our revenues are actually growing by 4.7%. So our revenues are doing well. A lot of that, Nick was just highlighting the growth in the passenger. And that is, we work on not only passengers are contributing, but we have other, we call them non-airline. They may be tenants or other operations that we do. We do a lot of things that are non-airline related as well at the airport. All of those pieces come into how we grow our revenues at the airport. It's very important for an enterprise fund, and which means that we have to raise all of our own monies to fund all of our own expenditures. We don't draw on the city general fund or taxes. Our biggest revenues, so we did increase our parking rate for the first time in at least 12 or 13 years. It was the first time, and I've been there 11 years, and we did that last July. So that is helping us. Our parking revenue is our single largest source of revenues that we have at the airport for our parking revenues. And so that is about, in this budget, it's 33% of our overall budget. So that's pretty significant when you're looking at, $8.6 million. Our concession revenues, we also have good growth in there, again, passenger driven. And so these are just some of the highlights of some of the things that we're doing. I mean, they're on the slide. So you can go to the next slide. We've got, so moving forward, we have opportunities, and of course we have our concerns. I mean, we have opportunities as we continue to build out, and we've opened our new concourse and our jet bridges offer. They now can service every single size plane that we have into our airport, which is fantastic. We're always working on new leases or with new hangars, new tenants, new opportunities. And Nick, did you wanna,
Yeah, I think the final really 3 bullet points, both in opportunities and concerns, are related to both local option tax specific to aviation fuel, as well as the state tax on aviation fuel. So we're looking for more opportunities to receive more of those funds back from the state of Vermont, which must be used for aeronautical purposes. There's no other use for those, which is a federal law. Of course, jet fuel prices are drastically fluctuating. So that's a risk for us as we look into the fiscal year 2027 number as it relates to airline ticket prices and passenger numbers. So we're actively monitoring that. And then again, there's some limitations on what the state returns back to the airport in those aviation fuel taxes, and that's a concern for us as we look into fiscal year 2027. However, we are actively working on that with many of our partners.
given the sense of time, so we have a couple slides in here that relate to all the, I'm the financial person, so this is the ones I all have, but we have a couple slides in here that we have different kind of revenue and we different kind of expenditures. We have on page 10, we have our operating revenues, and then further on, we have our operating expenses. So those are like all of the revenues, but we also have non-operating revenues. In the past 4 years, we've been, or 5 years actually, been lucky enough to have all that COVID money. So we finished that out this year. We also have something called PSC revenue, and that's passenger facility charges. So we get about $3 million, close to that a year. And those are dedicated, they're restricted. We have a process where we get applications in to approve, to pay for things. We also, on the blue side of the screen, so we have our revenues on one side, we have our non-operating expenses. That's what we call our debt service. We have revenue bonds that we will make our final payment in July 1st, 2030. So we have a number of years, but we're coming up on finishing that. We have capital leases, that is increasing this year. We have a bunch of new equipment, but most of that, the majority of that is actually going to be paid for from PFC revenues. So there's a process with that. We're allowed to do that. And capital, and then our interfund transfers is really the local share on all of the grants. Yeah, you can go to the expense or the revenues. Green is all of our revenues, just at a high level. This is made up of a lot of different kind of revenues, but these are generally the kinds of revenues that we have. So you can see out there, our total operating revenues are 26 million over last year. It's a 4.7% increase. So that is allowing us to stay healthy and strong in what we're doing and manage our expenses. We are always smart about how we spend money, and we are always trying to be fiscally, make the best decisions that we can. Things are expensive. We all know that we push for challenges with that, but we are able to balance that with a lot of good work from our manager to their team. Next slide. The blue is all of our expenses. So we have a lot more categories on here than the revenues, but just give you a sense and ideas. Salaries and benefits are really, they're really the biggest chunk of all of what we do to make all the magic happen. We have about 55 FTE full-time employees equivalents at the airport. They do a lot. They're an amazing team. They cover all the snow operations, cover all the things that happen at the airport, all the repairs that happen at night. It's amazing what our team does to make that happen with the same group of people. So I commend them, and we're really proud of them. But our operating budget is growing 4% year over year. Next slide.
I mean, that really concludes it. I think the summary says it for itself. We have 4.7% increase on revenues, a pretty small increase on expenses for us at 4%, and we're excited for fiscal year 27.
Appreciate it. 12 minutes. Well done. Yeah. So we'll open it up for questions first from Board of Finance members, and we'll have about 10 minutes or so. So just keep that in mind to share time with our colleagues, including other counselors who are here. So I'm seeing just Councilor Barlow and Carpenter in the room. I also see, Councilor Calvers online. Yep. So I'm just going to start with the three of you. If you have any questions, the three of you, and then we'll go to other counselors. Councilor Carpenter.
This is a little anecdotal, but I happened to be at the airport very late at night, and apparently they were very short staffed. And so I was going to ask you, are you having trouble getting staff, and how much is that affecting you?
Directly, no. We're fully staffed as an airport, like Marie said, 55 FTEs. When you talk about the hundreds of concessionaires and contractors who work for the airlines, which I think is what you're referring to, sometimes there is
These are very
so none of the folks that work for the airlines at the airport actually work for the corporation of the airline. They're all third-party contractors, not directly with the airport, for airlines, and it is sometimes a struggle to hire and highly competitive on the.
So they're
salaries.
Employees of the airline, but third-party employees.
That's correct. That's correct.
Other questions, Councilor Barlow?
Thank you for this. The increase in passengers from low 700s, like 750,000.
Yeah.
Outbound. That means is there a commensurate inbound that's sort of equivalent? You think people are?
Yeah, good question. Yeah.
I mean, so it's a question, but one of the things I'm wondering about is we were hearing, like economic activity is down, like in stores and restaurants and things. So I'm wondering where those people are going. If you have any way to track whether these travelers are travelers who are, are we stealing business from other regional airports? Are they people that are locals that are just flying more, visiting Burlington? Any data?
We do. So high level, you're right. The number that we shared for passenger numbers is just the outbound number. Double that is generally the total number of flyers or travelers. We focus mostly on in-planements is what they're called, or outbound passengers, because all of our federal formulas are based on outbound passengers. So the amount of grant funds that we receive annually are based on just on that outbound. That's why we focus on that so much, but double that is total passengers. If you, to answer your second part of that, if you look at our entire market area, our market area on the amount of travelers has not changed too much. We've got 3 million travelers within about a 2 to 3 hour radius of the airport. About half of those 1.5 million fly out of BTV. So what we're seeing is we're retaining more passengers in that market area, and they're not flying out of competitor airports or right now mostly Boston, which is about 30 to 40% of that market area driving. So more service, more demand, more competition with airlines on particular routes drives the cost of airline tickets down and we retain those passengers. So we're just seeing similar numbers in the market area, but retain.
That's right, but there's no way we can understand.
Where they're going.
But we understand there's more, which is good,
Uh,
because it's more of the PFC revenue and all of that, so, okay, I will, the only thing I'll just comment. I'm glad that you're making progress on your carbon accreditation, and we'll maybe have you back to the tube this year and report on your level 2 project.
excellent. Yeah.
Seeing no other questions by counselors on Board of Finance, I'll open it up to the other counselors in the room. Counselor Bergman, and then Commissioner Schechter.
Thanks. Did I understand that you've got a management position that's open? Like, did I hear that? right?
Correct.
Do I plan to keep that open this year or what?
Right now, the plan is,
So is there a projection for, is it 6 months, is it a whole year, is it indefinite? How does that fit with the other things that we're talking about?
right now, it's indefinite in care.
Thank you.
And just to remember, just to remind the public, I know you know this, Gene, but this is the enterprise fund. It does not impact the general fund. So all the other conversations you've been having around hold open positions are really just for general fund departments.
Absolutely get that, know that everybody is eligible for a pension, right? So it has an impact to that. The status of the new noise contour maps. Based on, you know, the guard is doing, have they been?
Yeah, nothing has changed with aircraft activity, so we don't have a grant, we're not starting those
So there's-
contour maps,
so there's-
still there's information.
So when it exists.
That's correct.
And the last question I've got is the number of eligible homes that are left for noise mitigation is how many and how many are you doing?
Right now, we're doing between 50 and 100 houses per year. We have completed all of the houses that would like the sound insulation within the higher contour area, which is between 70 and 75 dB now. So we're now working on the outer edges. I don't know the exact number of how many are left, but
You have a guesstimate?
Dwelling units, I really don't know. We've done several hundred and we're designing, at least we've completed and designed several hundred and we received 7.2 million from the DOD, which is a brand new grant for us too, on top of this year.
I understand. I think I myself and the rest of the council would be getting an update on the vacation. Thank you.
Sir Schechter.
Great. Fun fact, husband lands at BTV in 13 minutes.
All right.
Just tracked it. Circle. I'm just doing the thing where I'm scanning for the biggest percentage changes, and I was curious for the non-operating expenditures capital lease line that's increasing by 267%. What is that?
So that is, we're looking to build a new snow removal equipment building. This is essentially our maintenance shop where all of our big trucks go into and things like that. It is older, it has a lot of issues, and it is way underserving amount of equipment we have. So we got a design grant to which was through the FAA, which paid for 90% of the grant study to design a new building. which we've done. And now we're looking to, we've gone out, we've gotten bids on how much it would cost to build this. And now we're looking to secure some financing and bring all of that back. So that, we have a placeholder.
Okay.
So this is why you're seeing it. And then we have new equipment that we took possession of. They're huge. They're, I don't know, 75 feet across. But snow equipment that we got took service, 2 huge ones, are $1.3 million each. We got those in right before the snow season, and 2 other pieces of equipment was out in the airfield. And they're also funded by lease funding.
Okay,
So everything is built into there. So you're sort of seeing a lot of that happen all the same year.
got it.
It's good timing too, because you're gonna see this in more detail the next, probably 2 months, within the next 2 months. Not just on the financing, but the total cost and the contract amount as well.
So I budget for it and to plan how do I pay for it. And then we'll cover, any additional approvals of yours.
Great, great. And then the other one was investment income. I don't know if there's much to say there. It's just.
That's an interesting one. So we have, because we have all these bonds, that are still, revenue bonds are still outstanding. We have a number of compliance issues that we have. So we have to have like a operational maintenance reserve fund. We have to have a debt service reserve fund. We have all of these funds that are out there, and they're really earning really like stable. They're not like a risky market related stuff. And they've been earning year after year a little bit more than $350,000 in the budgeting. And so I finally said, we're pretty consistent. They're in very stable investments. So I budgeted that way for it.
Thank you. Some great questions.
Any other questions from counselors in the room or online? If you're online, just raise your Zoom hand, please. All right, seeing that, friends, you did it. You did it in technically 11 or 19 minutes, whatever. But you almost stuck at your landing. Unintended, so thank you very much. And airport team, we appreciate it. Thanks for being the first vote. All right, moving along, our next team up is Burlington Electric. Welcome. Let you get situated first. I know it's a little bit of competition here.
Well, thank you for having us. Just ask folks who are with us to introduce themselves. Maybe Paul might start.
Paul Alexander, manager of safety and risk management.
Evening, Mike Kendrick, manager of customer care and communications.
Munir Gasti, manager of utility services and engineering.
Emily Stubbs-Wheelock, manager of strategy and innovation.
Darren Springer, general manager. Glad to be here to present on the budget. Catherine, are you running the slides or would you like us to?
I am happy to do either.
You have them already?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Oh, that's with them.
Okay, so just from a context standpoint, we're presenting the budget this evening. It's subject to a little bit of modification further. This is earlier than we typically present from BED. Our commission meets in the second Wednesday of May. That's when we present the final budget and final FY27 rate change proposal. And then we'll be bringing the rate change proposal back here to the Board of Finance later in May, as well as to the council. So this is a near final presentation, but subject to a little bit of modification. Our org chart here. If there's any questions, we're happy to discuss those, but we'll forward. Emily, I think this one.
Sure. So as Darren said, this is a near final budget. We are continuing to work on it in preparation for the commission meeting in May. But to date, we have cut almost $2 million of non-power supply operating and maintenance expenses. We've assumed just over $400,000 in vacancy savings, and showed the slide to the board in the past. Prior to FY16, we were on a trajectory where what we call controllable expenses, which is O&M minus transmission and so renewable energy standard compliance expenses and other things that were sort of regulated to do. Those were growing over 5.8% on average prior to FY16, and since then we kept that going down to 5.9%.
This, I believe I presented as part of the net zero roadmap on Monday evening for the council, but this is, as a reminder, just a context slide comparing us through the Rocky Mountain Institute with Eversource in New Hampshire, which relies on natural gas more primarily and is more exposed to the market. There was a New York Times article that showed the states that are least vulnerable to natural gas price disruption, and Vermont was at the good end of that kind of table in terms of not being exposed as much to natural gas price volatility. So we can talk more about this slide, but our more diverse mix of resources is playing better over time than being more reliant on the market is the takeaway. There's one piece I want to highlight here before Emily jumps in on the operating revenues. The rate number here is a final number, and it is our lowest that we've had since we had to begin adjusting rates annually following the pandemic. We're proposing a 2.99% rate change starting on bills rendered September 1st, 2026. This also puts us in the category where we can have a potentially non-litigated rate process at the PUC. Municipal utilities can have up to a 3% rate case that doesn't have to go through the standard litigation process, saving us significant time, resources, and money to not have to go through that process. More importantly, this represents obviously the better value for our customers and continues a trajectory we've had of having low to mid single digit rate changes for predictability and for affordability.
I'll just say generally on this slide for highlights, kilowatt hour sales to customers remains flat. That's that's a concern because as costs increase, the revenues are not increasing on a volumetric basis, and that puts pressure on rates. And so in order to keep that rate increase to that low 2.99% level, that's where we've had to do the hard work of identifying cuts and trying to keep expenses as low as we can. Power supply revenues, revenues are decreased from FY26. Prices for RECs remain strong. However, we have lower volume available to sell due to lower production from our renewable resources in prior periods. If you think about the drought that we experienced that affected hydro production, for example. And the miscellaneous revenues other is largely reimbursement from the energy efficiency utility. There's a corresponding offset within OpEx. That amount is lower both in operating revenues and in operating expenses because there is assumed lower efficiency utility budget. That is a result of the efficiency demand response plan, and that's overseen by the Public Service Department, which determines how much efficiency potential is out there, how much efficiency gains can be made. And we are seeing as appliances become more efficient and standards change, and LED lighting becomes ubiquitous, there are fewer efficiency opportunities to take advantage of, and so the efficiency budget is lower.
Keep going.
Okay, OpEx total is up 2% as compared to FY26. Asterisk here, just to note, we do have renewable contracts that either have expired that we haven't filled yet, fully, or are going to expire later this calendar year that we're actively seeking to replace. Not having a firm proposal or contract in hand, we have made some assumptions based on the current energy forwards, assumptions that we think are reasonable. That is part of what may change in this budget between now and when the board officially votes on it later this month and at the commission meeting as well. We are beating bushes for renewable energy contracts. We are emailing with, I would say, 8 to 10 different potential counterparties. There is not a lot out there. We do have a couple active proposals. We're hopeful we can land at least one, but it has not been There's not a serpent.
It's one of the most incredibly difficult moments to try to procure wind or hydro, which is traditionally what we go to look for on the market. And at the federal level, they're actively canceling wind offshore leases, asking companies to invest that money in other regions in natural gas and oil infrastructure. So there's not a lot of help coming from supply that was expected to help, add to the region's renewable energy mix. But nonetheless, we're gonna keep our work and try to replace those contracts.
And then finally, I'll cover, we budget on an income statement or profit and loss statement basis. These are the things that are considered below the line or non-operating items. They contribute to our net income. They aren't part of our operating income. And those include dividends from our investment in Belco, the Vermont Transmission Company, interest on investments, grants and capital contributions from customers, and interest expense.
Well, I would just say that this remains on the FY27 side, a little bit of a work in process. The net income number for FY27 is lower than what we had in prior years, but what we'll get to in the next slide is our Moody's credit rating metrics, which really focus more on the operating side as opposed to the net side. We're keeping those in line with where we want them to be. We're not as concerned about the net income number as much as the credit rating metrics. This does assume continued use of our revenue bond funding, in particular, the new $20 million net zero energy and grid reliability revenue bond fund. This would be the first year where we're really drawing that down at a significant level. That was issued, as I mentioned, on Monday evening, just a month or so ago. And the operating cash assumption there, I believe, includes the line of credit. So we will be coming to you as well for our annual line of credit extension. We have a charter change a few years ago to have a $10 million line of credit that's evergreen. It renews on an annual basis. So we'll be coming to you for that.
Actually, the operating cash does not.
Oh,
line of
okay.
credit.
The days cash on hand here,
Yes.
the 141 days cash on hand includes the line of credit. So you can see here that the adjusted debt service coverage ratio at 1.1. We'll continue to work on this budget, so that may change just a little bit. The debt service coverage ratio, which is our bond covenant requirement, has to be at a 1.25, as you can see, remains well elevated above that level. And 141 days cash on hand inclusive of the line of credit is a reasonably strong figure relative to what we need, which is a target to be at or above 90 for our A rating. So importantly, we're continuing in a really tough environment to try to invest in customer incentives. Just today, H940, which is listed here, which we talked about a bit on Monday, passed the Senate. So it's headed to the governor's desk. We're hopeful that he'll sign that. That will enable us to continue to offer some of the best EV incentives, as well as our weatherization programs, geothermal test wells, all the things we talked about. This budget invests $1.5 million for Tier 3 electrification rebates and $1.7 million for energy efficiency programs and incentives. We continue to invest in Tier 3 rebates at a level above what is required by the state. We are actively seeking to overinvest in electrification, both because it's good from a climate standpoint and it's good from an operating revenue standpoint as we grow loads in a good way as we electrify. Incentive levels may vary. We will face an environment where heat pump incentives, for example, are going to be very hard to maintain at the regulatory level at the state side. They are making changes that's going to make it much harder to maintain the heat pump incentives we have, for example. We're going to do the best we can. We have important matching fund program for what's called a DERMS, which is a distributed energy resource management software system that's really going to be a connection point for a lot of our innovative programs like our heat pump end use rate and our EV end use rate and these customer facing programs, as well as potentially battery storage and other things. We're going to continue with the level 2 and level 3 charging, 4 level 3 fast chargers, 5 level 2 public chargers are in the budget. We're going to continue to invest in electrifying our own fleet. We're going to convert a forestry vehicle over to a plug-in hybrid. We're going to bring in an electric forklift. We're going to continue work to get ready for our next electric bucket truck, the second in our fleet that's coming in 2027. Capital investments and commercial flex load program as well. That's grant funded, that last one by the Department of Energy. You want to take the next slide?
Sure. The budget also continues our work on equity and making sure programs and services are accessible to all customers. We're continuing to provide our energy assistance program, which provides a 12.5% discount on rates to income qualified customers, as well as qualified affordable housing entities and nonprofit shelters. We're continuing to work with water resources to support their assistance program, whereby customer signs up with water, they'll refer to us and vice versa. We are planning to do sort of a launch events, as well as social media clips on videos that were funded by a grant that are recently completed. They explain weatherization, heat pumps, appliances. They've been translated into 19 languages, and they're designed to be approachable and accessible and understandable to a broad range of customers. We are continuing to be in the community at a number of events and partnering with many community organizations.
2 minutes, I'll give you a little extra yourself.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, we're almost there.
I know. We got it.
We appreciate it. So threats and opportunities, we mentioned lack of available renewables in the market, a key challenge that we're trying to address. Transmission costs, we've touched on this in previous presentations, they continue to rise at frankly unsustainable levels, and there's some additional pressure uniquely now because Vermont, because we invest in Belco as a transmission utility, the entire state does. There was just recently a FERC case where they lowered the rate of return and required a refund on the rate of return, which is generally good for ratepayers in other states, but generally bad for ratepayers in Vermont on a net basis. So that's some additional pressure on the transmission side. In terms of our incentives and growing our load through electrification, the elimination of federal and state incentives is a key headwind, as well as on a lot of the equipment that we buy, tariffs and inflation are playing a role in raising prices. We continue to litigate with partners, not us directly, but the state on this EV charging grant, the nearly $5 million EV charging grant that we'd like to have access to. And of course, we will see, as everybody does, some increased growth in labor and healthcare and other costs on the threat side. On the opportunity side, a lot of technology change happening at DEP. We have a new customer information system that's going in. We have the DERMS that I mentioned, as well as the Building Giants grant, which is going to help us provide heat pump customers with bill credits to lower their peak usage and lower their operating costs. We are continuing to see, or hope to continue to see, some sorts of opportunities to grow sales through strategic electrification. H940 is on here, that passed as mentioned today. We are looking, as we talked about Monday night, at innovation and efficiency at McNeil. We're hopeful in the next several months to be able to bring a battery storage proposal and advance that to the council for battery storage at McNeil, which is something we've talked about for a period of time. And I also mentioned on Monday, we're working with vendors who responded to our RFI that was a result of the polarity study that was presented in the TUC. We're hopeful to have something there to advance as well. I know this has been a topic before. Our team is doing incredibly strong regulatory engagement work. We have worked very collaboratively and constructively with the Department of Public Service to build back a strong relationship there and make sure that we're engaged in a strong way. We have interviews happening for our council position that's going to help us on the regulatory side. And our rates continue to be competitive and really some of the best in the region, particularly on the residential side, as we see rates that are going up much more in other places and other utilities. So those are good things on our ledger. And then the summary here, which I think we've covered, operating expenses only 2% higher, 2.99% rate change, no new positions, significant vacancy savings, dealing with the flat sales and the transmission on the headwind side, as well as the federal incentives. But I think that's everything. Thank you, and we're glad to answer questions.
See, appreciate it. So first to Board of Finance members for questions or comments. Councilor Carpenter.
We talked offline and you just said it again, I'd like you to repeat loud and clear for the public. The struggle to buy renewable power like wind and hydro.
Yes.
We continue to hear, why don't we buy more of it?
Yes. we are actively interested in buying more of it. And we are actively soliciting proposals. We've had RFPs in the past, for example. We have active contacts with, as Emily mentioned, 8 or so different renewable energy providers. We're looking both in our region and outside of our region. So we're talking within New England, but we're also talking to folks in New York and in Canada. There is a supply constraint. We are competing with a number of different utilities and entities that want renewable energy. And if you zoom out even further and you think about what's going on in the country with data centers and the fact that nuclear power plants are being purchased directly by data center companies and being brought off of regional grid systems, a lot of renewable energy is going in that direction as well. So if we think about it, we're not in an environment where we are supply heavy with renewables and there's lots of them and they're abundant and cheap. We're unfortunately, because we don't want to be in this spot, but we're in an environment where renewable supply in New England is constrained, where the federal administration is making it harder, not easier, to have projects come online, and where we frankly need everything that we can get in our mix from all these different resources just to be able to maintain our 100% renewable status, which of course provides us a lot of financial benefits that we didn't discuss, including being exempted from some higher cost programs. So it is a challenging environment, and we are actively in the market and spending a lot of staff time trying to procure those resources.
Questions, Councilor Barlow.
Could you talk a little bit about how the battery storage project and the RFIs from the Valeri report that are those wouldn't be things that would impact us in fiscal 27, but more likely later, or would they be potentially brought on or start to have this mid-year, or would they be also funded through capital expenditures that PDO funded?
So good questions. With the battery storage, I think we have a little more specificity on that one. We're really looking, we did an RFP, we have vendor proposals that we're evaluating. We're looking at a 5 megawatt roughly battery, which would be far greater than anything we have access to in Burlington currently, that could be sited at McNeil, that could be used to reduce our peak energy needs and help us from a financial standpoint, help the grid overall from a peak reduction standpoint. That could be structured in a variety of ways. You could capital fund it, but perhaps more attractive would be to actually do a power purchase agreement with the vendor who would pay for the capital and do the permitting work. And then we would have an arrangement where there would be certain types of what's called tolling rights with the battery, where we get to use it a certain number of times a year under certain parameters for both peak reduction and perhaps ancillary services. You can do that in a number of different ways. You can have a shared savings model, or you can have the utility have full control and we buy the rights to use it like a lease essentially. You can also have a right to buy out battery at some point down the road in its lifespan. And the batteries, commercial batteries, are still eligible for federal incentives, which is one of the few things that survived the recent legislation in 2025. So those are the considerations. If we were to do something and it was not a capital investment, it might not impact us in a financial way in FY27, because when you think about the permitting timescale and everything else, might really start to be a factor more in FY28. I think similar for the types of things that might come from the Valeri report. I think it's really important. We recognize McNeil, we want more efficiency, we want reduced emissions. It's also an important contributor to our energy mix, and it's important to our employees who work there and to keeping reliability and affordability. This gets discussed a lot, so I just want to say in 2025, most recent year for which we have numbers, pre-interest expense and depreciation, the plant as a whole, which we only own half of, and we only get half of the benefit or the loss, made $2 million plus, did not lose money, made money. McNeil is an important insulation against those natural gas prices. That said, I would really like to see an opportunity for us to demonstrate a new technology there, like what's been discussed in the Valeri report, and prove it out and see if it can work and see if we can connect something to our system and run it and demonstrate it, and then if it works well, be able to scale it. And so that's something that we're really interested in. And when we're talking with vendors, we're trying to get a sense of what type of technology do you have? How scalable is it? What types of emission reduction potential does it have? All of those types of things. And the same, I think, rules apply. Could be a capital investment if we do something in that space. Could also be power purchase agreement if we decided not to own and operate it, but to contract for it. So two very exciting opportunities, I think, for tangible progress at McNeil to achieve some of the goals that I think we commonly hold.
Thank you, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilor Rowley. We have a couple minutes left for other councilors. Councilor Bergman, can I see hands? Who else wants to jump in? Councilor Schachter. And if anyone is online, if you can put your Zoom hand up, so I'll give you 2 minutes each. Councilor Bergman?
Just lay out my questions and then you can quickly decide which and how to answer. Connecticut and I think Maine have changed their rec requirements. So I was wondering for status on that. I'm curious about whether the energy assistance program and whether tenants are eligible, and if they are, how many are utilizing it, and then curious about the planning that is being done on dealing with the increased transmission costs.
Okay, good questions, thank you. On the rec issue, Connecticut has discussed making changes to its qualifications, but and has issued a draft RFP for consideration that we would be eligible for, but has stayed currently any changes to their class 1 status. So McNeil, as of right now, remains class 1 eligible in 2026 Q1 for Connecticut recs. McNeil also became eligible for Maine class 1 and class 1A recs. There's not any change in Maine that I'm aware of that impacts that. So those continue to be premium recs that the facility is eligible for. And that's important, obviously, for our economics. In terms of the energy assistance program, the changes we made that were approved in tariff allow for affordable housing providers to apply if all of their residents meet the criteria. We are having conversations. I don't know if we've actually had anything go through yet. Yeah, we've had some conversations with partners who might be interested in doing that, as well as shelters that are providing residential shelter for unhoused members of our community. So,
But nobody in the private rental market.
Yes, short answer is yes, tenants who receive an electric bill.
Right.
Yes.
They, yes, are eligible for the program if they're able to qualify.
We have numbers on that, or and I can get set up later.
Over 700 customers. And
968.
something.
968 enrolled, not all of those are tenants, right? Maybe individuals. So Mike, maybe you can follow up.
Can you differentiate between the renters and?
Not at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
We'll follow up with you on that. The transmission question, we're working actively with Velco in terms of several different efforts, one of which is Velco and the state Department of Public Service advocating in other areas of the region to make sure we're controlling costs and not having transmission projects that are being built and that we're partially paying for that are doing, I don't want to use the word gold plating, but are doing more in terms of expense than what is needed. So there's good scrutiny being brought by Vermont partners on that. We're also, in terms of Velco, actively considering ways to address the FERC ruling. And that's Velco as an entity, but we're a member there, so that can, impact on us. So there's a lot of work going on. It's a huge challenge, and it's not something that we have direct control over, but through our board seat on Velco and through our membership there, we're working on certain of the utilities. Everybody has the same interest in Vermont on that. Yeah.
We're gonna go to Councilor Schachter. Thank you.
I just have a very fast question, which is in this age of electrification and all the incentives that are out there, how does that square with everything being flat?
Yeah.
Land being flat?
It's a good question. Part of the challenge is we kind of had a period of time between 2005 and the pandemic where we lost a lot of customers that were big users potentially. So we really peaked, and Emily's had some great charts on this that she's presented internally at BED. We really peaked in terms of usage back in 2005, and energy efficiency moderated some, which is good. We like that. The pandemic represented a real low point, and we've been building back kind of slowly from the pandemic lows, and we've rebounded somewhat. But even if you think about, energy intensive businesses that, blodgett ovens or coffee cup that might not be here, and we have good, Hula is a great entity. They're geothermal and solar. They're not going to use the same amount of electricity for good reasons that a blodgett ovens would use. So there's some changes there. But there's a lot of projects coming online, obviously, here downtown, the new high school. Those are helpful, and commercial is roughly 75% of our usage. So even if we have a lot of electrification happening from a small base growing rapidly. It's more on the residential side, which is only 25% or so of our usage, so it hasn't quite come out of the noise of variability and made a huge dent yet in our sales growth. That's fair.
I don't see further questions. Not seeing online, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. As I do depart, we will welcome up our CEDO department, the Community and Economic Development Office. Of our. Sorry, Director. When you two are ready,
Yeah, let me get my screen.
or I don't hear clock technically. Our on-screen sharing center.
Oh, down there.
Yeah, so you know, you all thank me when we get to the end of these agendas and we aren't here at 10 o'clock. Yes. I do turn the facilitator skill I have on. You are very welcome for that. Yep. And again, just a reminder, while they're doing that, any counselors online, if you do have questions, please use your Zoom hands, because I am looking and I'm not seeing anything so far, so. Right?
Yes, hi, my name is Cara Almasrawi. I'm the director of CEDO. Currently, I hold another interim role in the city.
My name is Will Cobell. I am the interim director at CEDO and normally when Cara is with us, the assistant director of business and economic development.
Hi, in terms of org chart, I had gotten some questions around it, so I just did a first page with just a divisional breakdown. Housing, planning has joined us as of January, business support and economic development, Church Street Marketplace, Love Burlington and general downtown support, and the Community Justice Center. This is our the org chart excluding the Community Justice Center, which I will do on another page. The darker green right here is the planning department. Director Dillard will be giving his own presentation for the planning department. And this is the CJC org chart currently. And then just some highlights of what we have been working on. Phase 1 of the South End Development project has been permitted. CEDO has taken over management of all city leases and we're streamlining processes around that. We had our first Latin American Connection celebration in the city and we will be bringing that back again. We've created a commercial space database to essentially help matchmaking for entrepreneurs who are looking for spaces with available spaces. We started something called Taste the One. It was a new event to spur commercial activity in the Old North End amongst our restaurants. We did a community food center analysis with the Intervale. We worked to create a new disadvantaged business enterprise registry. BH9, which is the Bloomberg Harvard cohort. We are working, we have several members of the CEDO team who are on that cohort and working interdepartmentally to come up with innovative solutions to our housing issues. The lead program is also housed in CEDO. There are currently 40 units enrolled, or there were, sorry, in FY26, 11 completed, and 24 educational events held for property owners, tenants, landlords. Home funds for the post apartments and the 100 Cambrian Rise were dispersed, around 1.6 million. And we've created a series of informational resources for some of our businesses and entrepreneurs in the city around how one can peddle in the city, commercial space website, certificate of insurance parameters for working with the city, which is a little more complex than you think. And we have other guides that are also available just in general. Doing business in Burlington is one of our most popular ones.
For the workforce development programs, we continue to partner with Resource to run construction training and weatherization programs. These are funded through a federal raise grant that funnels to E-Trans for the reconnection of Pine and St. Paul Streets and the renovation of Cherry Street. There's a carve out in that grant for workforce training programs around construction weatherization. And then we just wrapped up a personal care assistant program last week. All 8 members graduated and completed their exams. we're starting another round at the end of May, and this program definitely skews heavily BIPOC and women participants for that. And then for business assistance so far to date in year FY26, we've worked closely with 58 distinct businesses. We consider closely as like meeting with them, providing ongoing technical assistance. There's other businesses who we, respond to emails, answer phone calls, but of those 58 businesses we work closely with, 57% are women owned, 43% are BIPOC owned. The last 2.5 years, we've run office hours out of ALV every Wednesday. This is a great way to meet with diverse entrepreneurs in the community and really meet them where they're at. And this is a breakdown of the types of technical assistance we provide. It's a little small, but number one is business startup support, developing a business plan, developing financial projections, how to market your business, et cetera. And then the second most common thing we help with is finding space, navigating city zoning, permitting to successfully get into a new space. And can't really see it, but on the right there's a chart of the most common industries we work with, a lot of food vendors, a lot of up there, artists and makers, retail, and manufacturers.
Community Justice Center is housed in Cedo. They moved to their new building, the former VFW building on South Winooski. And in that building are also 38 units of affordable housing, and Cedo worked with CHT to build that building. The Community Justice Center, through a decision made by the Attorney General's office, will be moving to a county-wide model. They'll be changing their name to Chittenden County CJC as of July 1st. They will be operating satellite offices in several of our neighboring communities, and that is all for pre-charge diversion. And they also launched, under the mayor's leadership, City Circle in January. They've seen 16 participants with 14 successfully completed. This is, we have taken certain ordinance violations considered quality of life violations, and when an individual gets a ticket for one of those violations, they have the opportunity to participate in City Circle, which is a restorative process. Should they not finish that process or choose not to participate, the city then diverts those ordinance violations to criminal court, whereas previously it was administrative court. Cost savings for FY27. We are seeing a decrease in federal funding for workforce development projects. And we feel that we are well staffed with one workforce development manager. We had a vacant position that was eliminated as part of the FY27 cost saving process. We did some belt tightening and trimmed a lot of internal expenses. That the 8% is actually 12%. Sorry, that was a typo, and there was a little bit of a back and forth with DFA, but that is my error. And just a reminder, the majority of CEDO is grant funded. So CEDO is not generally a revenue generating department. However, we have renegotiated several city leases, and as they are becoming due, we are renegotiating them and trying to increase the rental revenue for the city. Expenses have been kept stable or cut. There's a slight increase in support for the houseless population. So that is a slight increase in the draw on the general fund. And then moving forward, we see our areas of opportunity, particularly in the development realm, as continuing to work on public-private partnerships. Again, as we are seeing a lot of the federal funding drying up, there's a lot, and that has been over several years, probably the last decade. And now, of course, there is more of an acute loss of federal funding. And we are finding that our best way to move our housing agenda forward is through public-private partnerships, such as the Seaport Development Agreement. We are continuing to use the lead program's Healthy Homes program. So once we get into a house to deal with lead remediation, when we see other health risks such as mold and things of that sort, We can access a sub-program of HUD called Healthy Homes, and at no cost to the owner, we can rehab some of those elements of their homes and make them more livable for them. We are in the process of revamping the Housing Trust Fund and the inclusionary zoning ordinance in conjunction, obviously, with our friends on the Office of City Planning to help jumpstart housing production. Some of those changes are looking to evolve and adapt those housing tools that have been with the city. The city was one of the first in the nation to have an inclusionary zoning ordinance. However, we have noted that it has not been updated frequently enough and is not responsive to current market conditions, and we look forward to bringing that to council this coming year. A continued focus on downtown revitalization as we see a drop in crime rates and an effort to increase commercial activity in our downtown. We plan to implement several action items coming out of the BH9 cohort. And the two of those mostly are the creation of what we are internally at least calling a housing shepherd, which is someone who is a point of contact for people who are looking to build housing that will help shepherd them through our process. And we are also taking a look at priority parcels that could lend to further public-private partnerships. We have a renewed post-construction focus on downtown revitalization, as we know that the Main Street project is wrapping up. Our workforce training will continue to have cohorts that support housing production, weatherization, and rehabilitation. And and the housing shepherd and the priority parcel. Yeah.
Well, yeah, one more opportunity with entrepreneurship that we're seeing as spaces become more limited and more expensive. Shared use models like the Oak Street Co-op, Poppy, and Fancies. We just helped start a new model that is Doma Vinyl Record Bar, and during the day it's a family that just started Dona Esa, Mexican food that's really good. They're sharing the same kitchen, but one has daytime hours, one has evening hours. And it's a great way to make the most of spaces in town, and we're excited to continue those sorts of co-op opportunities and shared use spaces.
Thank you. Our areas of concern are that the federal grant landscape is extremely unstable. As an example, the city had been the recipient of the Continuum of Care grant, which goes towards supporting our houseless population. We were the recipient for the county and helped manage and disperse those funds. Because the city has chosen to move forward with opening an overdose prevention center, that funding was at risk. The feds had indicated that if we were to move forward with the OPC, they would pull the funding for the entire county if the city remained the applicant on that grant. We worked with the United Way to take over that grant for us, and they are managing all of that moving forward to protect that funding for the county. So that's some of the sort of unstable landscape that we're working with. And so summary, I apologize for the 8%. We reduced our budget by 12%. We reduced one full FTE. Core functions remain the same, and housing remains a major focus for FY27. And I'm done.
Excellent, thank you very much. With that, switch over to questions. Councilor Carpenter.
So on the Continuum of Care grant, did we lose overhead when that was switched to United Way?
No, we did not. The only one who had been billing to that was Sarah Russell, and her, if you remember, it came to Board of Finance, her JD was reclassed down and that role was changed a little.
Okay, yeah.
So we didn't know.
Okay. And the lead program, same thing. Does the lead program contribute? We have a great lead program.
Yeah.
But so does the state.
Yes.
And so my question relates to how do we profit by having our own one city program as opposed to?
So the lead program is a 4-year program. We've wrapped up. Sorry, I just saw Ben raised his hand, so just like I can see it on my screen. I don't know why. We've wrapped up year 1. We're in year 2 now. I think we benefit 93% of the salaries are covered by the grant, so 7% does hit the general fund. I think we benefit because we have a lot of closer contact and a lot more sort of individualized influence. I will go back to in FY26. We have held 24 informational sessions to get property owners and landlords to enroll in our program. I don't know if the balance of state would really be putting that much effort into this area.
I think another way we benefit the lead program, which is tested soil for our community garden program. They do a monthly event with the family room, and so there's other community outreach benefits that Burlington gets that I don't think we would see with the state.
How much is the 7%? Or you can get back to me.
I'll need to get back
Yeah.
to you. I definitely have that.
This is not a comment on the quality of the program, but it's a comment on the state has an excellent program too. And is ours redundant and can we save money? So that's really what for.
Okay. I will note that we do still have 3 years left on the current
Yeah.
grant. Okay, yeah.
Put it online to Councilor Travers and then back to Councilor Porter.
Thank you. Sorry to not be there in person, but thanks as always for accommodating remote participation. I have just a couple questions. One of them is going back to the presentation and the slide specific to the City Circle initiative and the comment on 14 out of 16 individuals, I believe, having successfully completed the City Circle initiative. Can you speak a little bit more as to what successful completion means? Does that mean that they came to and stayed at and completed a meeting, or does that mean that there's been no recidivism since that completed? I'm just curious what successful completion means in that stat.
I appreciate that. I can probably also have the director of the CPC, Rachel Jolly, get back to you. We do not track rates of recidivism. So it is successful completion of the restorative process related to the crime that the ordinance violation.
Okay. And then this would probably be a question for Rachel as well, or Director Jolly as well, but is the way the City Circle initiative is working, if you show up to the meeting and you complete the restorative justice process, that the citation is withdrawn? Is that how it's operating at the moment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever that is. But I will note that this was devised as sort of a new carrot and stick model. So previously, these ordinance violations went to administrative court and had no further teeth to them. If you do not participate in this restorative process, your ordinance violation is now referred to criminal court and you do have to go up in front of a judge.
Understood. And so the two individuals that I'm guessing did not show up to meetings, I guess another follow-up question for Director Jolly would be, those have been referred to criminal court?
Yes, I can confirm.
Okay. All right, my second question then, it's more overarching for all of the presentations, which is some of the budget materials included in addition to the presentation, the actual line item budget, like for planning, for example, and Catherine, when it's ready, I think it would be helpful for us to have the line item budgets for each department as well as just an ask of whenever it's prepared, if it's possible to get at the council level, the entire general fund budget in Excel format, which I know we've done in recent years, just because it's easier to sort of tool around with that and sort it. So that's just one sort of question I have for all of the budgets. And then somewhat related to that, for the CEDO budget, is I'm very grateful for the level of third-party funding that goes into funding the office's operations. It is difficult to tell, though, from the line item budget, which line items are general funded and which line items are third-party funded. And as we continue with budget discussions and potentially wanting to do a little more, a little less there, the conversation has always been the last couple of years, well, if we want to do more somewhere else, then where are we going to do less otherwise? And without additional information on what aspects of a budget are grant funded and what aspects of a budget are general funded, it makes that exercise more complicated. I know we can come back to you and ask questions. I know we're potentially asking for us to completely redo the way that we do line item budgets, and I don't want to create too much of an administrative burden. I just wanted to flag that as we look at the line item budget, it can be difficult to know and draw lines between grant revenues and expenditures. That makes it somewhat difficult for us to determine where there may be room for additional movement. So those are my only comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Barlow.
Yes, my question's about the weatherization trip. There's a hope that with that program, we would see an influx of additional weatherization workers, so help us to with some of the audits that are required as a part of our weatherization ordinance we passed back too, I think. And I'm wondering if you have any of the 45 people that are participating in the program. Do you have any sense of how many have been certified or graduated in weatherization program, and if they're in fact in the community doing that work?
Yeah.
Due to the size of like what makes sense for the training, there's 8 folks per cohort. And so we have 2 weatherization cohorts, so 16 folks graduated. I could get data on like who got placed with a local company in town, but both cohorts had a full graduation rate of 8 each.
And they do an apprenticeship with a local firm as part of the training in an attempt to get them hired there. But yeah, I don't have the data right at me, but I can get that to you.
Probably to check with DPI to see if they're making any progress on the backlog.
Right, I know, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been a couple minutes for other counselors. I see Counselor Bergen. Who else, but who's not on Board of Finance, just so I can balance time, Counselor Grant, Counselor Schechter. You each get about a minute, friends. Okay, Counselor Bergen.
I can just list them. So first I want to appreciate the 12% savings that you made on the consolidation. Secondly, I would love to have metrics on the taste of the one. I went out to eat more in that week than I do in a year.
Thank you.
And it was really, and I asked everybody, and they said that the business really picked up. I'd like to see metrics like with Mark. I'd like to see job placement metrics on training graduates, just generally, and curious about the weatherization, whether weatherization would be part of the Healthy Homes sub-grant. I'd like to hear some particulars the upcoming year about examples of the downtown revitalization work that you're going to do. And I just want to also caution, I do not think that somebody who was cited for a civil violation and fails to do the city circle is subject to criminal violations on that. I think we had that conversation ordinance committee, and so I would ask you to check that in terms of your understanding of that and the ordinance that we passed, because I think we made, that was not something. So I just wanted to throw that in to protect you from the statements in case.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry if I did misstate something. I know that was the intent.
Back, there was an intentionality there. This is not a topic for finances, so we'll move back.
You don't need to hold back with me. I just want to make sure that this was flagged here so that you didn't get whacked down the road by somebody saying that you misspoke here on something like that.
We've reported on this multiple times though, so we'll get clarity for everybody involved around what the process is. So heard and thank you. Counselor Grant.
So Jean actually covered a couple of things, but I wanted to, not much as a question, but just throwing out, I would just really like to see a comprehensive social media campaign aimed at people who can drive, people who live in the States who can drive within a 6-mile radius, because we can't be dependent on the Canadians coming back given the political situation. I just know when I go to other places, I see advertisements. I'm in Boston, I see advertisements for Portland. I'm in Portland, I see advertisements for Boston or all these other little vacation spots. People still take vacations, but they're not necessarily flying or something like that, and I feel like we leave that just off the table, we could really see some rebounds, and Will, if you can reach out, just make a little note, reach out to me, because I'd love to talk about Mohui. I always mispronounce the name.
Yeah.
Gina and I have a meeting to discuss next week.
We've been working with them for a long time before they came to council.
We helped them in their last relocation from the corner of North and North Winooski
Yeah.
to a building on North Winooski across from Bohung. The owner is retiring and looking to sell the business, and the agreement for that space, we had to get a rezone for retail, was that the market could remain as long as she owned it, but it's designed for food production, small food producers. And we've sent them a number of spaces, but they haven't met their needs or budget, so we're still.
Yeah, can you make sure me and Laura also involved in this?
Could you send them invite?
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks.
If I could quickly, so you're talking about marketing outside of, let's say, Chittenden County, you're talking about destination marketing.
Yeah, I think so.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
no, it's fine. We do have some limited budget around that. We do try and target through social media when we can, through boosted ads. And we do coordinate with the chamber that does a lot of that. So the hotels spend a lot of money through the chamber to do destination marketing. But for us as the municipality, in our budget, it's easier for us to use, so for example, the Bang newspaper, so Shelburne News, Charlotte News, those, and get out to those areas or be on Vermont Public Radio and things of that sort. It's a very expensive budget to try and start budgeting in Boston, and so we rely on the chamber and the state tourism to boost us in that manner. We do have thingies, like, I don't know what, brochures in the rest areas, on coming in, you laughing, so I don't know if we have two counselors.
Yeah, so I could definitely follow up with that. The last thing I'll quickly say is I definitely agree with Jean with regards to Taste to One. And what I find it to be really important because yes, we concentrate a lot on downtown, but we have all these other businesses in Central District. And the restaurants in Central District are open later. So there can be an opportunity to really pick up when we talk about gross receipts taxes where we might be losing something downtown. We have these businesses in the North End that are open later.
Yeah.
You got Ichiban's open until 1:30 a.m. on like every weeknight, 2 a.m. on the weekends, and the restaurants out there, a lot of them are open till 10. So yeah.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
Two counselors left and we have two other presentations to go, so I'm gonna give you each a couple minutes here. So Counselor, but you're gonna pass.
No, I said I'll go fast.
Oh, you'll go fast, okay. Counselor Schachter, and then I do see Counselor Sanchez Parkinson's hand has gone up as well, so thank you.
In your, I think it's in the expense, what is the fees to the city line item that what is jumping from 5% of expenses to 9%?
Can you tell me the beginning of the GL code?
Well, I can't see the spreadsheet, it's just this.
Oh, that, are you on the Church Street Marketplace?
Yeah.
I'm
very confused.
I'm about to be there.
Yeah.
You're about to be there.
I'm
Okay.
about to do that one too.
Okay, great. And then the only other thing is I will echo Ben's, I do think seeing the line item budget would be amazing, and I know we'll get those, but I just want to put in a plug. I know I've talked to you directly how much I think investing in whatever modest way we can as a city to make sure that some of the amazing destination marketing that the chamber and others are doing beyond Chittenden County that we can help promote some of that within Chittenden County.
Yeah.
And so I would love to see sort of where that falls in the budget once we have the line item budget broken out. And
Okay.
if there are ways that, I think that there's some really cool stuff happening that we don't have to create it ourselves. We can
Yes.
leverage and amplify
Yeah.
really good work.
Which we do through our social media a lot, through our stories and our taggings and our repostings and all of that. We also run one of the most active event calendars.
Yeah.
In the city that we have, it's like an open source so people can put their stuff in that, and we can see on the backside how much traction we get with it.
Great.
Yeah.
Love all that.
And I have all that data, if you ever, my marketing team produces for me a quarterly report with all the data of our click-through rate and all of that.
That's great, thank you. Yeah, I just, I hear anecdotally, and I don't know how, I don't have the, not looking at the numbers that other towns' gross receipts are rising much faster than ours, and so I just think within Chittenden County. So like the more that we can be bringing business to Burlington, the better, and I do think, there's some, it's more than half, right, of the economic activity is from folks that are local.
Yes.
Downtown, so I just think really thinking about how we're promoting those efforts within the walls of Chittenden County is really.
Yes. Great, yeah.
Okay, and our last word will go to Counselor Sanchez Parkinson.
And Counselor Carpenter has questions.
Okay, we are way over time, my friend, so if you can save your question and just send it to Cards, we have 2 more to go, and it is 7 o'clock already. I just wanna request that. Okay, Laura, are you there?
Yes, thank you so much. And I'll just make a quick more so comment and happy to follow up later as well. I just wanted to acknowledge, as one of the departments that is heavily reliant on federal grants, the ways that your budget is impacted. I know it also impacts staff. And so I was deeply thinking about how those departments who are heavily dependent on grants and the uncertainty of it right now, and how that's impacting the uncertainty of your work and of your team and being able to manage that. And so as someone who works in the space of federally funded work, one of the areas that I've been thinking a lot about is how we can continue to become more of a collaborative community, just in general and across. And I appreciate you naming some of the opportunities that you've already noted. And so that's an area that I'd be happy to continue to talk about.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you all very much for allowing me to move us along. Yep, the CEDO team, thank you very much.
And we're staying right here.
On now, blink your eyes and take it away, thank you.
Unfortunately, due to scheduling issues, Samantha McGinnis, the director of the Church Street Market, could not be here with us today. But the Church Street Marketplace is housed in CEDO. So this is our org chart. We have our 3-person maintenance team. We have 2 marketing managers and coordinators. We have someone dedicated just to coordinating everything on the marketplace, and we have projects and events. Some highlights, we have 2 new leases at the city, both at 62 and 180 Church Street. Those are structures that we own. One of them is the Lunix kiosk. You just approved that lease, so the new tenant will be moving in soon. We produced over 80 free events that were held on the marketplace. Some were small, some were large. Maple Madness returned for the 2nd year. We tracked over 4,500 visitors to that event. That has become an extremely popular event for us, and that will continue next year. We launched Party on the Bricks, which is basically a small block party on different blocks of the marketplace on different evenings of the summer. We held our first ever construction fest, which was a multi-departmental collaboration and was a huge hit with our children in the community. We grew our Instagram and Facebook followers for the marketplace to 60,000. If you include Love Burlington, we have over 80,000 followers that we manage. We became Main Street America accredited, that is for downtown improvement districts. And it is a program that the ACCD at the state of Vermont has encouraged all designated downtowns in the state to apply for. And we welcomed 6 new businesses so far onto the marketplace.
More of an opportunity, but the Main Street America Conference will be held here in August this year. So we have folks from around the country coming and working with the hotels on a number of room blocks and just bringing good economic activity and showcasing our downtown and Main Street.
What to expect in the coming year. We will continue hosting our free community event. We're expanding Party on the Brick to include 4 fall dates because it was so popular. We are building more community partnerships for programs and events, and trying to make it easier for third parties to throw events in our city. We have our business incubation program through our cart vendor program. I will note that the lease that was signed for the Lunix kiosk was someone from our cart incubation program. So we are seeing success moving people. People often start in our City Hall Park markets with a booth. Then they have enough capital where they can create a cart and they enter our Church Street Marketplace cart program. And then we try and move them to a brick and mortar. This case is a smaller brick and mortar. It's the kiosk, but we do consider that success and growth for these small business owners. We welcome new businesses, as I said, and we've been working closely with the community partners to address safety issues and closely coordinate to respond to visitor, resident, and business owner feedback on that. And we are planning with other departments of the city a large celebration that's on July 17th and 18th for Main Street. Cost savings for the Church Street Marketplace. A reminder, the Church Street Marketplace is an enterprise fund. CEDO merger created some cost savings with administrative overhead. We are not anticipate, we have had a series of need for vehicle purchases in the last few years, and we think we're done with that for a while. We have new plows and trash trucks, and so I think we're good. So that gave us a little more breathing room. And because we signed 2 new leases, that's projected an additional 10K in revenue. And this is a breakdown of FY26 revenue in comparison to FY27. I will note that the commission voted to reduce the sidewalk cafe fees by 5%. And they voted to keep the common area fees flat. As a refresher, council, that also moves through to council as part of the larger budget process. Those votes are first held at the commission level. The reduction in sidewalk cafe fees was an attempt to acknowledge the reduction in gross receipts that the city has been receiving and some of the hardships on that industry. Expenses, this is the difference between FY26 and FY27. I want to, what was your question?
Fees to the city is jumping.
Fees to the city includes, what am I missing? It includes city attorney fees, it includes HR fees, all the services, because we're not an independent nonprofit as the Church Street Marketplace. We do owe the city for those services, and most of the enterprise funds, or all of them rather, do as well. Budget remains stable. We do have concerns about the marketplace budget because the commission voted not to raise common area fees, which we also understood the reasoning behind that. But inflationary costs are real and they are putting pressure on our budget, but staffing will remain stable. We are enjoying some of the cost savings realized through the ModGov merger. Questions and discussions?
Great.
I'm trying to make it.
It makes me excited. All right, so questions from the board, and then we'll go to other counselors. Counselor Carpenter.
This is more of a comment and just that attracting people down here. And I want to say there's still a huge perception about parking. And my cohort says it's too hard to come downtown, and I see Andrea shaking her head. You can't get parking, which is not entirely true.
It's not at all true.
Okay, I just like, you said it to me and you didn't say it to Andrea's constituents or my, so I think we need a drilled in media, but not TikTok, but something
Yes.
that will get to my cohort.
Okay.
And
the Burlington Community Newspaper, the new iteration of North Ave News would be a great place.
So some of those
Do a
sort
piece
of
like
lower
that.
key things, because again, many of the 50+ think, oh, I can't come down, I can't find a parking spot. I don't know where the parking spot is. And it's honestly really true.
Yes, we
Or
do.
untrue, but
It's untrue, yes. I mean, and when DPW gives their presentation or parking, they will explain to you that we do still have very comfortable vacancy rates. Particularly in the marketplace garage, which historically we hadn't had. We see those vacancy rates due to the work from home culture and the loss of office workers in our downtown. So there definitely is, and heard that our marketing might not be getting to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Councilor Barlow.
I just building on what Councilor Carpenter was asking about, whether or not it's perception or not, it's a reality that there are people regionally who are no longer coming to Burlington and staying away. And we need to do something more to attract those folks back and I thought like, well, one thing that was really effective, I thought, at holiday time was when Chief Burke had that little, was it an Instagram or something he did, but it was some video that was helpful to tell people that Burlington is safe and open for business. And we need to be, I think, doing more of that to get somebody.
I feel, sorry, I
Go ahead, did I say?
No, I'm really sorry.
No,
It's not a conversation.
No, it can be a conversation, but I just had like, I had a very distressing conversation today with somebody. They wanted to meet me. We ended up meeting at Barnes and Noble. I was trying to get them to meet at Crew. And I asked them why, and they say that they don't come to Burlington anymore. They stay in South Burlington, and their Williston's got a vibrant sort of town center sort of thing they're building at it. Around Maple Tree Place. So I just think, hopefully we're putting more energy and more budget into, I don't know if it's just Church Street Marketplace, but whatever we need to do to bring folks back. And so, it is a conversation.
Okay, I felt like I was jumping in because I think we might benefit from us giving a marketing presentation to you guys, because we put a massive amount of effort into marketing and to coordinating with others who are marketing for Burlington. At this point, I have to be honest, I don't think that physically staff or financially the budget can do any more marketing than we do. And in terms of, I agree with you, like Burlington has some reputational damage that is long-term and it's gonna take a little while to chip away at it. But our marketing, and we're picking the events that are getting good traction and we are expanding them. To bring 4,500 people down for Maple Fest and we design those festivals so that people have to go into businesses. So they have bingo cards, or they have hunt where they have to hunt for things, etc. So we're actually trying to drive traffic into the door. So each of our, and then we market those events, not just in Burlington, but within Chittenden County and northeastern Vermont. I just wanted to do some expectation management about, we would need more marketing staff and more marketing dollars, which is why we also collaborate with the chamber to try and dovetail and boost each other's work.
Well, it's budget season, so we can figure some things out.
Okay.
Okay, any other counselors on the Board of Finance before I open it up? Not seeing Ken's hand up, so we'll go to other counselors. Counselor Jactor.
And just
Counselor Travers.
I'm so disappointed, Mayor.
What happened?
No. Just a couple questions. One is, Cara, I have not heard anything with respect to, at least directly from the Church Street Marketplace Commission, why they elected against raising fees this year. You mentioned that we understand their reasoning. Is it just the economic headwinds that businesses are facing, or are there other reasons as to why they elected against increasing fees this year?
It was economic headwinds and trying to send the right signal to businesses. And I believe, I can't fully speak on behalf of the commission, although I was at the meeting. The commissioners are concerned about the current vacancy rate on the marketplace and just didn't think it would be a helpful move. Staff had advocated for a 1% increase. I think a 1% annual increase is a little easier to stomach. We have had a 6% increase over the last 10 years. So that is not keeping up with the inflation, and that's where some of those pressures are.
Okay, thank you. As we look to all the events that the marketplace produced this year, to the extent those were funded or supported by any city monies, were those all monies through the Church Street Marketplace, or those events that you're referencing, to any extent, were they also funded by Burlington City Arts or any other city departments and agencies?
They were almost exclusive. So on the Church Street Marketplace itself, we do collaborate with BCA sometimes in City Hall Park, but that's on the other side of, that's like Love Burlington, et cetera. On the Church Street Marketplace, those events are solely funded by Church Street Marketplace funds and corporate sponsorships.
Okay, thank you. The last thing that I'll note briefly here is I will be interested in hearing when DPW comes before us what the plan is for FY27 for the monies that they've been putting towards the sheriff's department in the marketplace garage. From my perspective, I think that we've seen some good improvements in the marketplace garage, and to the extent it was at all possible, I would be very open to considering whether or not we could, and this goes to Mark's point as well, modify the contract that we have with the sheriff's department in the garage to potentially expand its geographic scope, and wonder whether or not Church Street Marketplace would welcome having those officers, not just in the garage, but perhaps moving over to the street some. And if yes, whether or not there's any openness to that, not just being funded, because I suspect it might be more expensive, but it not just being funded by DPW, but whether or not Church Street Marketplace maybe would be a bit more open to a fee increase if they knew it was going directly to expanded security services in the marketplace. So I don't know that we need an answer to that right now. I'm curious to hear from DPW what the plan is for those services there, and just want to state now my openness to are potentially expanding their footprint.
Right, understood. Thank you, Councilor Travers. You're always welcome to jump in. So I did not mean
I
to.
know.
And we'll put you here at 7 something. All right, Councilor Schaffer.
He kind of teed it up. Thank you, Ben. I was just gonna ask about when we had VSP, where in the broader city budget does like expanded presence at certain key times of the year, like holiday shopping times, from a public safety presence, does that live in CEDO's budget? Where does that live in the city's budget? And then are there any plans to do any of that again this year?
So the broader security presence that we have sometimes had, for example, on the marketplace during the holidays, was typically funded through philanthropic donations, and they would be filtered, yes, through the Church Street Marketplace, et cetera, and we would do those contracts. Currently in the Church Street Marketplace budget, we don't have any funding for security.
Okay, but it would come through, like, if there was a need identified and a philanthropic.
Yes.
donor
Exactly,
or
it can go through us, it can go through CEDO, and it can pay for BPOA overtime, shifts, or things of that sort, yes.
Okay,
And we could manage those contracts if that's your question. Yes.
okay, so we're not preemptively budgeting to do.
No, we are unable to do that. That would entail cutting marketing, and it would entail cutting events.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Other councilors, questions? Councilor Grant?
Just a comment, I really feel like we need to do, and it's something that, brought up before, but educating our businesses. Some of our business owners are their own worst enemy because they continue to spread rumors that aren't true. And it's primarily because they either don't live in the district or they don't even live in Burlington. How do we get them to be more active in it? Yes, you have to work hard to run your own business, absolutely. But if you're not paying attention to the community and which you do business out of, you end up supporting things that, you know, cut off your nose to spite your face. And the other thing I said, you know, around the garage is, it is, what we have to continue to do is to, deal with some of the root causes, because the fact of the matter is, all the garages have activity. The nooks and crannies of the garages are very, very interesting. I'll leave it there, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Grant.
With that, Cito, thank you very much. Well,
We got one more.
Standing in for Margaret. Now for your third act.
I'm just gonna sit to the side because Director Dillard, I think, has a handle.
Charles.
on
And bring
this
it home.
budget. So
Bring it home with our.
I will try.
City planning, leaving the best for last. Get ready to screen share. There. And take it away when you're ready.
All right. I am feeling later than the 10 o'clock council meeting. All right. A small budget for the Office of City Planning. So we are a team of 3, as Director Almasrawi mentioned earlier. We have moved into Cito, where we have been for 3 months now. So our current structure remains as it was before. We've been a 3-person department since 2022. With director, myself, a principal planner, and a senior planner position. We were finally able to fill after about a year of search. That new senior planner has been in place now for about 6 months, since October, and great job. Billing. Actually, let me just take a step back and just say that Laura shared how we fit into the larger Cito org chart, and I want to say that just the last 3 months, we've had more collaboration with the housing team, more collaboration with the development team, learned more about what the Church Street Marketplace is doing, and actually see a lot of opportunity for collaboration across our disciplines. We can assist with things like placemaking and urban design that goes right along with a lot of the work that the Marketplace does. I can share more on that. We've been focused on some big ticket items in the last year, and in progress, we have a couple plans that will continue in fiscal year 27. So Plan BTV New North End is a plan that's been going on since late 2024. We actually just received the draft final plan yesterday, and are doing our final internal reviews and meeting with the planning commission and ultimately the council in the next couple of months. Be able to get that plan adopted in the summer. That plan provides a really compelling, exciting vision for the New North End. We heard from a lot of folks over the last 16 months, and I think that that plan itself will potentially be a boost for the economy of the city. Obviously, the New North End. Preserve BTV is the historic preservation plan that will be completed in June 2026. That plan is funded in part by a state grant, a CLG grant, but ultimately by funds that were originally allocated. Actually. And then the big one obviously is Plan BTV 2050. This is an update to the comprehensive plan, as we are required to do every 8 years. But the open house is tomorrow night, tomorrow actually 3:30 to 8 at Main Street Landing. That plan is, I do want to pause here and talk a little bit about this, just given some recent questions. We know that the economic development team, the consulting team, is very much focused on this experiential element of downtown and the overlap that has with perceptions of things like parking, perception, safety and all that sort of thing. And they're laser focused on this issue about how to bring folks back into town, both, you know, live in Burlington and outside of Burlington, the county and beyond. So we've got you counselors on our planning advisory committee and you all throughout this process, but I just want to say that a lot of these issues that you've been asking about tonight are top of mind, and we're happy to speak more about what we can do in the short term and then set us up for success in the long term. In fiscal year 26, city planning took part in sort of a project management team in the open space protection plan. That plan was adopted in January, and that team has hit the ground running in terms of implementation, all sorts of ways. We had a lighter zoning amendment workload in the last year, given our big focus on planning. However, we did move a few amendments. One was just our sort of annual technical amendment process. We approved some exemptions for transportation demand management exemptions for affordable housing to really sort of remove barriers to that critical sort of community infrastructure. And had a minor sort of amendment dealing with setbacks in the downtown. We have 3 ongoing amendments. One that has been related to one of the issues we're talking about, but it relates to fences downtown. We've also got 2 big zoning amendments that we're in the process of drafting right now, one of which is inclusionary zoning. Met with many of you to talk about that one. That will be the first major rewrite of the IZ ordinance since 2019, taking a sort of fundamental look at the purpose and role of that ordinance in Burlington's housing systems. The next one is transportation demand management. This is all about non-infrastructural programs and services that the city and others can provide to Burlington residents to make it easier to move in and throughout our city without needing to own a car. That amendment will start in the summer, and we hope to get it before council by the end of the year. A lot of engagement with partners like Green Mountain Transit, CATMA, CarShare Vermont, and others. We're really encouraged by that work. We do have a grant to study a mobility hub later this year.
About 5 minutes, Charles.
All righty, well, this is a short one, so our fiscal year 26 budget was $727,000. We've got a reduction of $69,000, 7, mostly related to a reduction in consulting and professional services lines and employee benefits. We are, we don't have a lot of revenues. These are just grant revenues, municipal planning grant with the state of Vermont to do scenario planning. This is a specific, technically complex type of thing. We do have a sub-consultant on the on-plan team guiding us in this work. That work will actually begin, well, we had it has begun, but the bulk of that work will take place in July and September and be completed. Will be reimbursed for that work by the state. The second one is the certified local government grant for historic preservation plan. That also will be reimbursed to the city early in fiscal year 27, likely in September. Expenses. The actuals were a bit lower than our initial budget due to the senior planner position being vacant for the first 3.5 months of fiscal year 26. And again, our current proposed budget for fiscal year 27 is about a 10% reduction to year 26. Opportunities we see, this will be the first year in a couple of years that city planning will be fully staffed. We do have a great team that allows us to work across departments and collaborate much more than I think we have traditionally, which itself creates opportunities for reduced reliance on consultants for planning studies. We have been doing a lot of work on housing over the last few years, and we know about several projects in the community that would produce, hundreds of units. And we're really encouraged that some of these projects are in the neighborhoods and utilize the neighborhood code. So we were before council a couple weeks ago to talk about how we have addressed barriers to the neighborhood code, and we're happy to share that there are people in the community, residents of the community, taking advantage of that zone. Areas of concern. This doesn't directly relate city planning, but we are concerned that to the extent that the federal funding picture continues to look inconsistent, especially for projects of importance to Burlington's values. We are concerned that an inability to implement significant projects that have been called for in city plans could produce, concerns in the community about the ability to implement the priorities. So just to summarize, the budget is proposed to shrink. We will remain a department of staff. Though reduced, we do have some professional consulting services fees, comp plan included, to support some of those other grants. And just to conclude, in the long-term picture, I have a vision of relying much less on consultants, and I think that's shared across the administration, my department heads. We have the talent at the city across departments to create interdisciplinary teams, to do work in-house, and sure, we may need to call in help for some highly technical or financial planning work, but we do have the people at the city to do this work, and I think that that could really be a savings going forward, that could really change the way we plan it, and go beyond it. With that, I will take questions.
Almost, that's right at almost 10 exactly. So, all right, to our Board of Finance colleagues first, questions for Charles. Councilor Carpenter.
Just a comment on the historic preservation plan, and we now have this initiative, this bill initiative about impediments to getting things done. And there's a lot of conflict at times between historic preservation, renovation of buildings, all that good stuff. So I'm just, wanting to point out that it's going to be really important that we don't create our own impediments. Everyone wants to preserve the city and the historic nature, but we need to be cautious that we don't create impediments to renovate that into flexible, affordable housing.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Any other, Councilor Barla?
Mine also just a comment. I'm really excited to see the plan BTV to go to fruition. Excited. Thank you.
And thank you both for all of your sort of guidance throughout that process.
Yeah, Councilor Barla. Councilor Chatters. No?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for everything you're doing, Charles, with limited staffing resources as compared to the past. So appreciate everything you do. I guess I was wondering if you are able to, or if not now, if we could follow up later, expand upon if there are any specific plans for the monies that remain in the consultant and professional services line item. Is that contingency planning based on the assumption that we're no doubt going to need some outside third-party expert support, or it seems like a pretty specific number. So I'm wondering if we already have plans for some of it, and if so, for what?
We do. We have money earmarked for the comprehensive plan consultants. We've got some money that is even more specifically earmarked for the scenario planning effort, including a local match. And the remainder is, yes, basically contingency. We do have some highly technical zoning amendments, the IZ one in particular, for which the city currently doesn't have the sort of staff capacity to undertake. And so we always like to sort of keep some funds available for those sorts of technical studies and planning. But the current plan funds are about 111,000 of that total. So we'll have, a bit left over for any other technical studies.
Okay, I would be interested in seeing, to the extent it's possible, just a breakdown via email of what you just described there. It would be helpful.
Yep.
And then just as a quick follow-up to that, we know that there was a higher than usual consultant professional services line item in last year's budget because of the Plan BTV 2050 project. And I guess I had thought, perhaps very much so mistakenly on my part, that that amount was covering sort of the contract for those consultants in full. But it sounds like perhaps there's some other additions that need to go there in FY27. Was that planned last year, or has the scope of the planning process expanded in FY27?
Our fiscal year 26 professional consulting line was mostly dedicated to the preservation plan and the new North plan.
Okay.
We didn't actually have much at all reserved for ABTV 2050.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. I think we can now move to other counselors if there's questions. Okay, all set back there? Okay. Online, any other questions from other counselors? Okay. All right, well, with that, there are no items that we're voting on tonight. Anyway, these were all for information purposes, as I should have said at the top. Okay. So with that, with no further business, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:36 p.m. Thank you very much.
You go.